Welcome back. We are still looking at how the economy is faring or has been faring on every time the country gets into a general election. And this morning we are in conversation with David PARSEINA, Cliff OTEGA and Collins OLUOCH, who are all with us here this morning. Let me talk to you back, David PARSEINA. Just before you broke off, before we went on break, David, the question was, even as we say things are going to get better in 2022, we've seen pockets of violence, David PARSEINA, haven't we? Ah, he's not back, is I? All right, let's cross over then to Collins in the studio. Collins, we can't run away from the fact that indeed we've seen pockets of violence. And for any other investor looking at the way the country is gearing in 2022, that has to be a fact. We've started 2022. Earlier on, we are still seeing pockets of violence. And the same thing that the politicians are saying. We've known, Ruto has been in court saying that whatever the votes are going to be voted this time round, nobody is going to change. Raila Amolo Odinga has already been called a state project. This tussle of this guy versus that guy, as opposed to the politics of policies, is that what investors will look at it and say, hold on, maybe?
And really, I want to talk about the rhetoric of aspirants.
Yes.
The kind of slur that they're using. The last time you saw the Senator, Mythical Inturi, say something to the effect of, let me quote him, Madoadoa. The other day when Raila was having his rally at Thika, I saw Rafael Tuju, a senator, rather a CS, having worn a shirt written that Mimi ni Madoadoa. We are in a situation whereby someone says an ethnic slur to spy emotions or whip emotions of people. The other side is picking up on it and owning it, and be like, now we are riding on this, and it's so unfortunate. We see the deputy president saying that this time round you're not going to steal the elections. This time round, whether you are deep state, we don't care. You see the side of Raila saying this thing has always evaded us. Now we have the deep state with us, so this thing we have it. I mean, those kind of rhetoric coming from aspirants of such stature is really telling the investors that really, so for instance, if Ruto loses, then he's going to say it's a deep state. If Raila loses, then we're going to blame this amorphous creature that has been created in our minds that is called a deep state. We are going to blame it. And if we are going to blame it, Ruto has said, and he has told his supporters, that this time around we are not going to take that. We are not going to take that. If you're not going to take that, what are you going to do? You're not even putting your trust in the judicial system that we have. No one has talked about going to court. No one has talked about that. People have said our votes are not going to be stolen this time around. We are going to be watchful. Whether you are a state project or not, whether you are deep state or not, we don't care. That is the kind of conversation that is going out there. And that's why I'm saying there is nothing that we've changed. Politicians keep talking about how to use money. They are saying, I will give 6,000. They are saying money will come down, bottom up. We are not talking about how to get that money in the first place.
Yes.
We need to have policies in place on how we are going to promote the economy. You're not going to tell us every now and then that pesa itaenda kwa mama mboga. How are you going to get that pesa? In the first instance, we are going to say 6,000 is going to go to young people. We are going to block avenues of corruption. Good, you're going to block avenues of corruption, but are we talking about where we are going to get that money that is being swindled through corruption, or that we're going to give away? That is what I'm saying. We have not. All these are just catchphrases. Talking about bottom up, trickle down, 6,000 or 24-hour economy. We've heard that for as long as I can remember.
Yes.
We've even had supermarkets running for 24 hours, but it does not reflect that our economy has boomed. I mean, really, we need to sit down and look at these politicians and rate them in that manner. Coming back to your questions, these things are worrying the investors. The politicians that are running for office now do not have faith in the judiciary, and that is the only hope that the investors can have, because the courts are neutral arbiter. The investors would want to look at how is the courts going to rule or rein into potential violence if there is going to be one.
Yes.
But we've seen people who are castigating the courts every now and then when they have decisions that are not going their way. And so you expect that to happen if you're going to move to court disputing election petitions. You're going to see that happening. And so for investors now, they are looking into investing into this country 2023. This is not speaking doom into this country's economy. For instance, something like international tourism has not picked up until now, because of COVID. You don't expect a tourist to come to visit this country when you're having elections. because they've seen it.
Cliff, is it the same script that we've seen in the previous years, that we've seen our economy slump towards every general election, Cliff? It looks as if it is, and if there's anything different, I'll be interested to hear that, because even Collins is saying, well, it's sort of the same script. We have people speaking against each other and then to each other towards the general election, and that's exactly what is happening now, pretty much early on. And Cliff, even indeed it's a different script. I mean, IEBC has not even officially called the start of the campaigning period, but we have campaigns in a full gear. Is that not the same script that we've seen in different years when the economy has slumped, Cliff?
So, of course, yes, Simba, from a political rhetoric perspective,
yes,
you know, we started off well. Until December, the conversation was quite good because the focus was on what we need to do to change the fortunes of the average Kenyan. That's a good conversation that we were having.
Yes.
Unfortunately, since late December and now, of course, for most of this month, that narrative has shifted a little bit back to what we're always talking about, which is basically an ethnic divide and rule. Okay?
Yes.
And that's why I'm saying for now, it's still early. I hope that both political formations can rein in the worst, ethnically divisive people.
Yes.
But, having said that, so I'm saying that it has shifted. And we're talking about investors. I want to look at a particular group, although a lot of people are not happy about this, because the business community has realized that we don't want this to happen again. We've seen, for example, last year, the so-called Mount Kenya Foundation, and we saw the faces there. Those people control quite a large chunk of our economy through various businesses and sectors. We saw them take, which I've not seen this early before, a very decisive step in terms of playing a role, in what direction the country's leadership takes. Now, many people will not agree that that's the right way to do it, but I think we all know it happened, that it's been happening in the background. So that gives you a clue in terms of where the country does not want to go. People, I think, right now agree that we do not want to see, and we cannot afford a dip in our economic fortunes as we have over the past few years. Now, going back to how that happens, I wish one of the things that was in this political party's amendment bill was that each political party must release a manifesto maybe 6 months to the election, because we are worried now. Everybody's worried because there are a lot of promises, but we just don't know how this will be paid for. Okay, so that obviously is a red flag as we go towards the election. But once again, as you said, we're not anywhere officially in the campaign period, so we have a little time to play with. And I'm not probably as worried as I was maybe in November, December last year.
Yes.
And I'm happy, and I'd ask all Kenyans, let's be patient for another month or so, and let's see deeper what these patients have for us.
Yes, pretty much. All right, David PARSEINA, can you confirm whether you're back? Because if you are, I would like to put this question to you. David, your optimism is interesting, and that's exactly what Kenyans would like to hear this morning. But David, if you look at the way we are then gearing to for 2022, what must the government do, David? Or what have they done then, in your case, just to point the country in the right direction, David, so that now we don't get to that area where we're saying, well, it's an electionary year again, so now things have again fallen on the economy. What are they doing that is making you to be an optimist this morning?
Thank you very much for this candid discussion. I want to continue by saying that I want to be very optimistic, because for the first time we are seeing a more of an agenda-based politics. The UDA faction are talking about a bottom-up economy.
Yes.
Raila Odinga's Azimio is talking about a social protection mechanism of some kind, 6,000 shillings to vulnerable families. There is also the likely emergence of One Kenya Alliance, assuming they present a candidate for election. And they are also talking about 24-hour economy. They are also talking about free university and secondary school education. I want to believe that if our politics remain as it were for the last 2 months, agenda-based politics, I think we are likely to see a very different kind of economic behavior going towards 2022 election. Secondly, coming from the COVID-19 pandemic, our Kenyans are really yearning to capturing the lost time. I want to believe that going forward, Kenyans' economic activity is going to be robust up to about July, where there is very likely scenario to occur that Kenyans will hold a bit, they will reduce a bit their economic activity as they wait for the outcome of the general election. I think this has been a Kenyan culture. We are active, and then 1 month or 2 months to the election, we go slow in a wait-and-see situation to see who becomes the president.
Yes.
But more importantly for government, I think the Independent Electoral Boundary Commission should pronounce themselves very, very actively that they will provide a free and fair election. I think where government lost is when the recently concluded voter registration exercise that was shrouded by lack of enough funds. I think that really showed a lack of preparedness on the part of government, and that really brought some confusion. I hope that this time round, if government can allocate more resources and more guidelines towards voter registration, and IEBC coming out, and all government players that are responsible for security and free conduct of the electoral process to come out clearly and promise the antagonistic players that indeed, despite who has one of the best agendas, but they should come out clearly and say whoever wins the election is going to be free and fair. They shall respect court decisions as pertaining electoral processes that will come after the election, and that government will stand in the middle to ensure that whoever wins the presidency or any electoral seat is awarded. I think that one will really solve much the issue of the economy.
Yes.
And it will clear the unpredictability and uncertainty of our politics before. Thank you.
Pretty much. All right, Collins, you hear that then. So let's talk about then what appears to be the threat for Kenya's economy in a 2022 with the general elections, COVID-19 pandemic. Let's open that conversation as well. Are you satisfied with the way that the government has responded to the containment of COVID-19 in the country as we start 2022?
So far, I think we've been we've done our best with regards to, I think, immunization. We've done our best with vaccinating rather. With regards to vaccinations, we've tried to vaccinate people, and that's a good way towards combating this pandemic. I think also the ministry talked about herd immunity, trying to see how people react if many of them get infected and they form that immunity for themselves. To that end, I think we've done our best. Now to the other end, whereby we've seen people disregarding the government measures that they've been put in place with regards to social distancing and all those. I think the government has not been firm with regards to that, because I think the people who are steering this agenda are politicians at the end of the day, and so it's hard for them to have that double speak of saying no social gatherings, and then on the other hand they are the ones who are part of those social gatherings.
Yes.
For instance, I think there's a time when they said no social gatherings, and then the DG of Health, Amoth, was attending a funeral in Nyeri that was attended with a lot of people. After that, you saw the CS Health was, I think, in Kisii or somewhere, doing the Azimio thing with other members of public, and they were congregating, and a lot of people were not minding whether we have a pandemic, that we are still battling a pandemic. So I think to that end, with regards to to the government being firm on the measures that they give out, I think the government has let us down with regards to that, and really the political elite group have done that.
Yes.
I'd want to see the politicians really whipping their supporters and telling them to get vaccinated. If they are organizing political rallies in stadiums. We'd want to see, I think it was done once when Raila was launching the Azimio in Kasarani. We had vaccination centers in Kasarani, and I'd want to see that now being rolled out to and embraced by other politicians, that when you're going to places where you're doing that, ensure that you've liaised with the Ministry of Health to see how people can come on board to vaccinate people. If you're putting stringent measures on those people who are coming to the country, of the ones who are flying out, then you should equally put those stringent measures in the people who are attending political rallies, because that is the thing for me is a brooding ground for COVID-19.
Pretty much. I'll be coming back to you on exactly what the government then needs to do in this last months for Uhuru Kenyatta, just to make sure that it's driving the country in the right direction. Cliff, let me pick from there. Cliff, if indeed public debt is an issue for Uhuru Kenyatta, maybe I should have asked this question. Should it be an issue for Uhuru Kenyatta as it sets out? Where should it focus? So that by the end of 2022, we will still look back and say, well, it's tipped out with the economy numbers being at this level. What should be the focus for Uhuru Kenyatta? Because we do know public debt and external debt and domestic debt have been the biggest talking points for the economy in 2021.
Okay, Simba, I think the Uhuru Kenyatta administration is already now in transition. And honestly, this 7 or 8 months is not enough to tackle this debt crisis. And I think that is a gift or a curse that he's going to hand over to his successor. Okay? So what perhaps this administration can do now, and just in a few weeks, we're going to have, it looks like there's going to be a mass exodus of senior civil servants and bureaucrats out of government to go and run for political office. So the capacity to deal with some of these heavy issues, I think, will be even more diminished. So I think in terms of how this current administration or what they can do, I think their hands are tied, okay? So in terms of how he prepares for the handover to the next administration, then basically what we're looking at is we have to find a way to rationalize what we're spending between now and August, because I know historically there's also been a rush to maybe initiate or complete certain projects, and then of course that creates loopholes. We end up maybe paying too much or starting new things that we didn't really need, and that sort of thing. So I would hope that the administration would have a very keen eye on such things. No, perhaps I'm dreaming, but I'd like to hear them say no more non-urgent or unnecessary projects. So when I say unnecessary, I mean typically every project has an objective, but we would not, for example, expect to see maybe infrastructure projects worth maybe 300 billion rolling out between now and August. I think that would be opening up avenues for corruption. So I think now it's about containment, just like we're talking about containing COVID-19. We need to look at how we contain this debt. So we need to put a stop to unnecessary spending where we can. And once the handover happens, then we would hope that whoever comes in next does have some sort of strategy to handle the debt. But in terms of Uhuru Kenyatta and his administration, their time, I think, is up in terms of how they manage the economy.
Pretty much. But then, Cliff, I also want you to quickly touch on that point. If indeed we have our lessons from what has happened all the way from 2008 up to 2017, what can they do now as government just to make sure that anything around the electioneering period that can actually lead to any sort of violence or any sort of feeling of injustice in Kenya can actually be rectified right now? And do you feel that they're making the right steps right now?
Okay, so I'll go back to what Collins was saying. For me, and I've said this for a long time, IEBC is a stumbling block now, okay? Whether it's because of its own institutional lack of capacity or whether this is deliberate from within and outside IEBC, that we don't know because we're not in there. So that is, for us, a key indicator. IEBC needs to be properly funded. IEBC needs to get its act together, because I saw, if I'm not wrong, I saw an ad for a new IEBC CEO last month of this month. That's ridiculous. 7 months to a critical general election. They need to get their act together. For me, I think that's the most important thing, and I think I heard David say that as well. We need IEBC to not just look like, but to actually be an independent, referee of these upcoming elections. So to me, that's the biggest signal. The second thing is we need our security agencies to be non-partisan. Unfortunately, we are seeing very senior civil servants pronounce themselves, especially in that interior ministry, they pronounce themselves in public as having taken a stand as to who will be the next president and who won't. That is not comforting, because at least they should be seen to be impartial. So these are some of the mistakes that we are making and some of the wrong signals that we are sending. And we would hope once again that within the next few weeks, because we don't have a lot of time, then we would have that rhetoric toned up, because it's all about signaling now. But as we said, look, the truth is in Kenya, every election appears to be a matter of life or death. Or we don't have any options, okay, beyond the political formations that we have now. So we need to be hopeful that they also don't want to see Kenya burn or our economy in tatters just because of our power struggle.
Pretty much. All right, to you, David PARSEINA, as well. I want you to weigh in on what Uhuru Kenyatta's government then can do if indeed they now have that sole responsibility to transition the government into the next leadership. What should be their focus then in the next couple of months, David PARSEINA, as we wait for that transition to happen?
Thank you very much. I think my observation will be, I want to agree with Cliff.
Yes.
Number one, I think there should be general restraint on government expenditure on huge development projects like infrastructure. There should be restraint or suspension of huge infrastructural projects. I think Uhuru government's term has neared its end.
Yes.
But he has an opportunity to, number one, allocate more resources to IEBC so that IEBC has capacity and ability to conduct a free and fair election.
Yes.
That's number one. Number two, President Uhuru Kenyatta has an opportunity to restrain elements of his cabinet not to take sides. I think there is this commonly known issue in Kenya today that the deep state plays a big role in who becomes the next president.
Yes.
I don't know what giant this deep state is, but I think he has an opportunity to tell Kenyans that there is nothing like the deep state. It is about who has the best agenda for this country. It is about who Kenyans want to vote for. And I think creating a leverage, a level playing field for all political competitors by ensuring that there is security, IEBC is properly funded, and elements of his cabinet do not take political sides. We have had pronouncement from ministers sitting in his cabinet, campaigning for a certain political figure. I think we should see an end to it. I think 9th of February is when all political leaders who are working in government are required to resign. I think immediately after 9th of February, we need to see a small restructuring of government, and people who will be reassigned those duties should be non-politicians who will not take sides, so that the government of President Uhuru is seen to have been a government that contributed to a peaceful transition
Yes.
of Kenyan leadership into another leadership in a way that is very peaceful, that does not affect the Kenyan economy, and that is seen to be celebrated by Kenyans after the election.
Collins, if Uhuru Kenyatta's time to build the economy then is up, because we do know in the next couple of months then the CS it might be left with a tiny CS number to take the country into the general election, then what should be his focus, Collins? Because are we then saying that whether we like it or not, then those GDP numbers have to come down again? Because if indeed his focus is not going to be on the economy, you listen to Cliff and PARSEINA, stop launching bigger infrastructural projects now, clear what you started, that should be the focus now, once it gets into 2022, and transition the country into the next leadership. From what you said in this morning, what should be his sole focus, Collins?
For me, I think for the president now, I don't think he's a lame duck president, as people have always thought during his last few months.
Yes.
For me, I think for him, most importantly now, is to speak hope to the Kenyans. One, by appointing the judges that you failed to appoint. That will speak a lot of hope and confidence into the judicial system that we are having, because there is a lot of, he has said a lot of things, even the last address that he had to the country, I think on 31st was about, he was bashing the judiciary. I mean, really, he needs to speak confidence into the judiciary because of how divisive our elections are, and going to the elections, we want to have electorate who are confident with the judiciary, should the IBC not play its part. Secondly, is to, I mean, support IBC. If IBC is requiring funds, support them, because as IBC is presently constituted, a lot of people don't have faith in it. There are a lot of issues, a lot of teething issues that were addressed during the presidential petition, that were raised during the presidential petition that have not been addressed. You've not seen even strategies put in place to see that those issues have been addressed. I mean, we are going to elections whereby, again, we'll be told servers are in France and they cannot be opened. Those are issues that we've never talked about, and those are issues that any person who loses election will easily jump onto those things. Three is to stop supporting projects. If you can pump money directly into the economy, you better do that. If you're going to see programs like Kazi Mtani, engage these young people instead of having them filling the studies. Engage them. I mean, pump money into those social programs that you can roll out now. But I don't think he's going to play more of a role into, let's say, transition. We've already seen he's picked a side, whether it's perceived or it's something that is there. He's already picked a side, so we don't expect him to say that he's not leaning into any inclination that is going to see to it that we have a smooth transition. I don't expect him to say that. But for me, if he was listening, I'd want him to pump money into social programs, stop rolling out projects, let your brother carry those projects when he's elected, if he's going to be elected. And again, inspire confidence into the judiciary and into those sectors of the country, like security sector, NCIC, for instance, the ethnic slurs that we are seeing. I mean, you need to pump money into those sectors to be able to see that during this electioneering period, they create that conducive environment.
Pretty much. That's exactly what we had for you this morning. We were joined by Collins OLUOCH, who's a lawyer and economic analyst. Collins, anytime, man.
Thank you.
All right, anytime. All right, we also have Cliff OTEGA, who's a policy and governance analyst. Cliff, always a pleasure talking to you, sir. We also do have the David PARSEINA, who's an aspirant member of Parliament, KAJIADO East, making part of that conversation. David, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you too.
All right, and that's how we come to the end of the show this morning. My name is Elijah Charles Kiaget Tech. All these gentlemen this morning who were in conversation with us this morning at Metropole TV KE across all your social media platforms. The conversation continues. Hashtag BusinessAM. We're also live on our website, www.metropoletv.co.ke. Good morning.